You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
So when you were growing up watching wrestling, were there any, I guess, big guys or anything on TV that inspired you, that you thought, you know what, this guy's cool, I'd really want to do what he does?
Well, there's a few of them. There's a lot of them. I was always a big fan of all big guy wrestling. Of course, you got Andre the Giant, which, you know, was impressive enough. His size was impressive enough, you know. And
right.
I was kind of interested, fascinated by him, for sure. Well, you know, when The Undertaker started, you know, when he started, you know, I was fascinated by it. Because he's a big guy, same size as me, but of course he's a little more agile than me, and this incredible stuff he was doing in the ring, that kind of inspired me. You know, all the Hogan, of course, all the big guys that makes it on top, I was interested in, you know. Of course, you know, they got the Macho Man. Recently, I was just watching Netflix and the best of the Macho Man matches, and that
was a good show too. He
was impressive, though. The Macho was always what an athlete he was, and what a worker he was. You know, even in the mid '80s, you know, he had everything going for him. You know, I mean, he had the gimmick, of course, but I mean, he was such an athlete, you know, he was a great worker, and he can tell a story as well in the ring. You know, it was great to watch. You know, so for me, it was. I like those guys. You know, the top guys. Of always, you know, watching Bret, of course, Bret Hart, and a lot of big guys. You know, that a lot of great wrestlers that I enjoy to watch. Watching wrestling with, you know, on TV. You know, so.
And of course, having Elizabeth by his side certainly didn't hurt either.
What's that?
And of course, having Elizabeth by his side certainly didn't hurt matters either.
No, it didn't. That was great, though. You know, it was a perfect matchup for, you know, it was, you know, he was such a conniving, you know, controlling heel that, and then having her by his side, you know, so it was totally opposite. You know, it's a great combination. It was a great pair. He got over so well. You know, but no, I mean, all the wrestlers they had at the time was all I was, you know, I was a big fan of. I was a big fan of Hogan, you know, for sure. You know, was a big guy who could move, you know, and had charisma, you know. So I was fascinated by it.
This is the Undisputed Wrestling Show, and we're talking to Kurrgan from the Truth Commission and the Oddities, and I'm going to kick it over to my partner in crime, the bearded wonder himself, Zane Paisley. Zane, what do you have for Robert tonight?
Well, thank you so much once again for coming on our show. So, Grand Robert, you were trained in Canada. How did you get to be part of the WWE or WWF at the time?
Well, it was through one of my mentors. I was saying earlier from the local wrestler. His name is Leo Burke. His name was. And he's a well-known wrestler from in the eastern part of Canada, but also out west, in the western part of Canada, in Alberta, in Calgary, where he befriended the Hart family over the years in his career. And so he was when I got called from Leo back in '96, November '96. I remember that day very well. At the time, he was training Bret Hart. It was, working for Bret Hart, working through the WWF at the time, when Bret Hart had his ring at his home, a wrestling ring, and he was training recruiting new guys. And Leo was kind of was the assistant for Bret. And I think they were looking for guys to I guess the group, try to fill up the tag team, the Truth Commission, the tag team, looking for members for that team. And so they brought me in to fly me into Calgary to meet Bret for the first time, which was pretty cool and pretty exciting. I spent a whole month really just to train, really, as a, you know, because it's been a couple of years since I didn't do much wrestling. At that time, I was bouncing and stuff at bars. And so they just wanted to know if I could work. And after months, you know, Bret was happy, and they flew me down afterwards to Stamford, Connecticut, where at the head office, where I met my future partners from the Truth Commission, and then basically work together. And that's the first time I met Vince McMahon for the first time, which was pretty, intimidating.
What was that interaction like that first time that you met him?
What was it like? He was a busy guy. He was always busy. And he came over. We were training at the facility at the TV studio. They had the ring set up, so we were all trying to make it work, the tag team work, try to gel together. And he came over just to stop by, see how we were doing. And so yeah, I mean, that was having him watching over us was kind of intimidating. It was a bit distracting. But no, he was nice. He was great. He was said hi. He went to military school when he was a kid, and he was criticizing. We wanted to make sure we got our march, because with the TUWS Commission we marched to the ring, and so he wanted to make sure we got the march right, because he knew how important it was, especially when you were at military school where he had to do it, And he liked my look. I remember he liked my facial reaction, the way I looked. So I remember that. And so yeah, that was one of my first experience with Vince, which was interesting. But and I spent a few weeks down in Stanford, and then after that they flew us down to the USWA right in Memphis, where Jerry Lawler was running it. And that's where we worked there, over close to 4 months down there, just to get experience together. And so yeah, it was an interesting time. I wasn't sure if we were going to get picked up by them, to be part of the big show. And so it was a bit nerve-wracking. Wasn't sure. It was the only way to get into WWF at the time, but I wasn't sure if it was. You could have gone either way, really, because we were being watched by the agents over there. How once in a while they came down to see how we were doing, if I improved and stuff, and if they were happy with it. And so it was, touch and go, really, And I was down in Memphis, like I said, for the longest time, and this is before Skype. I had to call my wife. I wasn't my wife at the time. Actually, we're about to we were making wedding arrangements when I was away. So the day after I got back home, we got married, so it's, it was an interesting time. It was pretty stressful, but I'm happy I did do it though. I mean, Memphis, I met some great friends, my partners, and learned a lot and traveled a lot over there, I mean, it was an amazing experience, but I'm happy I didn't have to go through it again.
Well,
but,
and
yeah.
Then you came up on the main program, and I think I was at either the debut of the Truth Commission on WWE, or maybe it was one of the first times. It was in Muncie, Indiana, and you and the Commandant and Bull Buchanan came out. What was that feeling like coming onto the main roster? I know that you were anticipating it and you were hoping it was happening, but going out there in front of 10,000 people, was that just mind-boggling to you?
It was mind-boggling. It was a rush. It really was. Actually, I think I do remember Muncie, Indiana, but our first match as a TUWS Commission in a WWF program was Shotgun Saturday Night, if you remember that show.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
It was in Detroit. It was in Detroit. And they flew us up as a dark match, and basically it was do or die. It was do or die. If they weren't happy, that was it, And so already, you felt nervous already. And so we were 3 against 3. It was a 6-man tag, and it was a dark match right before Raw, but still also part of Shotgun. It was still part of Shotgun taping. But we did our match, and I was so nervous before. It was just everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be done right. Because if we didn't, we wouldn't have a contract. So, but that was a rush in itself. It really was. First time wrestling, in the WWF show program in front of, like I said, 10,000 people, and the energy from that crowd, and it was an amazing experience. And what made it better is afterwards. They were happy. you know, they were happy with our match, happy with me and my other guys, who were happy with the team, and that's why we signed the contract. And that was a thrill, signing finally a contract with them. You know, it really was a dream come true for me. You know, and because it was always a dream job, it was always a dream to be part of the WWF. You know, so yeah, there was some great moments, one of my favorite highlights.